I have here vintage Henkel's for your door, probably a 1960s razor. And this is a piece of slate that a buddy of mine, Eric, sent me. And I'm going to do a little scratch test on it to see what kind of grit pattern we can erase from this king. So I'll set the slate aside, and I'm going to create a 1000 grit scratch pattern. I have a water bath here, rinse it off, and my microscope, which is set up to be viewed on my computer screen at 315 power. This is the switch here that I use to go from my viewing in the microscope to viewing on my computer. Okay, so this is the scratch pattern from the king. It looks pretty brutal, and I'm not like totally impressed with it that it's a fully set bevel. So I'm going to go back to the king and put some more passes on this razor so we have a more defined scratch pattern from the king. Okay, that should do it. We weren't too far off to begin with. I just wanted to make it look a little bit more understandable. Oh, that's much better. Okay, here's what we ended up with. There's the edge. There's a lot of loose steel up at the edge there. I'll take a photo of that. This ragged edge is all a false edge. It's just a tongue of steel that has no structure underneath it. A lot of it just flops back and forth during the honing from the heavy grits. So I'll take this Henkel's down to the sharpening bench, and here is Eric's stone. It's a beautiful gray, very even looking stone. And what I would normally do, and this is what I'm going to do with his stone, is I'm going to raise a slurry using a diamond plate. This is my normal technique of testing stones. And I feel like this is a relatively hard stone, probably like a level 5, maybe, yeah, about a 5. So there is a gray slurry here now. So I'm going to go at it with this Henkel's. And these are one directional strokes. I lift the razor for the return stroke. Okay, so there's 10 strokes per side. And I just want to look at the scratch pattern in the microscope and see what kind of results we have after just 10 passes, which, when you consider some fellows will hone for 100 or 200 or 300 different passes, this is very minimal. And I think that's an impressive result right there. We have some remnants of the 1000 grit scratch pattern. But in general, those 1000 grit scratches have been, let me take a photo, have been erased. Probably, if you remember what the scratch pattern looked like here, that was a full-blown scratch, whereas now we're just left with faint residue of those previous scratches. And that was just with 10 strokes. So we'll go down to the stone again. Eric may not use his stone with a diamond plate, but this is the way I test stones. So there's 5. I started with 10, now we're going to do 5. Now I'll go 3. So that was 21 strokes total. Save some of that slurry. Rinse off the blade. And again up to the microscope. This switch here that I'm operating allows me to flip the image over to the computer screen, so it can be recorded here. So this is after 21 strokes. He's got a lot of refinement that's gone on from that stone. And although in the computer these diagonal scratches from the king look quite bright, or dark I should say, they are very shallow, and I'll focus in and out. You can see that they don't really get any darker than that dull shadow. Okay, next thing I'm going to do is I'll go down to his slate again. I wish he'd name these suckers so we could give him a designation. I'm going to rinse off the stone. And Eric has provided me with these slurry stones. He gave me a whole group of them. And they all look the same. And they look of similar material. So I'm going to raise the slurry. There's always a danger that some larger particles will break off from the tomo nagura slurry stone. But this is about the consistency that we had from the diamond plate. Moderate amount of slurry and of a good even color. So we'll put that in position, and we'll follow by 21 strokes just like we did from the diamond plate. There's 10, it might have been 11, but I was counting 10. And these are one directional strokes. I lift the razor on the return stroke, like this. Okay, so there is 21 strokes. We have now a total of 42 strokes on this blade from that stone, which is a quick 2 sessions. So here's what we're ended up with at this stage. There still are some remnants of the king. They may have brightened up a bit. But the edge here, which is the important part of the razor, looks quite nice and even. Now this is with no stropping. So next what I'm going to do, I have a clean leather strop here, four-side. This is the Illinois strop. So that was about 20 strokes. Rinse it off. We're going to look at it with a microscope again. And then I'm going to try to do a hanging hair test. See what kind of action we get. This looks pretty nice. And the blade has brightened up quite a bit. I'll focus that in. And take a photo. Now, as I usually do, I have some hair. And we'll see if this will pass HHT. Well, I'm getting like a violin, so I'm thinking that that was a 2 and then that was a 3 there. So I think the edge needs a little more refining. The stone did a lot of work, but we may have to do some extra work in the stropping sequences. Even some leather, some linen might help a little bit. Okay, that was not a big deal. Everyone needs a strop. And that seemed to have cut our results on HHT a little bit. Let me go over the leather. I think I only did about 20 passes on the leather originally. This seemed like about 30, which is not an extraordinary number by anyone's book. Okay, that was a 3. That was a good solid 3 up near the heel. At the toe, that was a 3. So the stropping did improve the HHT a good bit. I can see that some varied results could be had with this razor with a little bit more familiarity. That was a 4. If you became that was definitely a 4, more familiar with this razor, with this stone, I'm pretty sure, and I'm going to try to shave off of it in about 5 minutes. So these are into the 4 range right now. So I'd say that was a pretty good positive result from the tomo nagura that he provided. And I did base some of it on the diamond plate, but I think it could be probably a very flexible stone.